Come on now, I gave you a chance to run for your life. You didn't take it. So now we're going to get down into it like we mean it. Maybe I give you another little scripture and you go home and copy paste it on your refrigerator. Put it next to all your other little copy paste scriptures on the refrigerator, and you add all that mess together. That makes no doctrine and makes no sense. Makes God look like a weirdo. It's all the Bible that you got to have in your life. It's all the Word of God. Father, we just set aside our life to come and sit at your feet and listen. We are choosing the thing that Mary chose when she sat at your feet to listen to you. Lord Jesus, your words have power. Amen. And we choose right now to submit ourselves to you, your lordship, your word. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So, I feel like a magician. Anyway, if I could take somebody and I would say, like maybe I should make me a show and be a physician. I'm a physician. A magician, they're both the same. And, I can say, you know what? I can make a list. I can tell you where all your problems come from. Baby, you go over there and make sure that they ain't going on me. Just slide it down and fit. You know how I could do that is I would get you to make a list of all the things in the Bible you don't believe. Uh-oh. And I'd be like, that. All the things in the Bible you don't believe, I can connect back to every problem in your life. Some people believe some things about the Bible but don't believe other things. Come on. But the Bible's filled with things to believe. And so you really don't get to pick and choose. You got to believe it all or you believe none of it. Mm-hmm. Either that guy in this book right here is the craziest guy we've ever met, and he needed to be killed, or he was not. He was the most genius person that ever walked this earth. And everything he said was more true than what you see with your eyeballs. You need to get in this Bible and make a list of the things you don't believe so you can start working out some problems in your life. Somebody asked me the other day, which Jesus lives in me? Is it the Baptist Jesus? The Pentecostal Jesus? You know, Jesus lives in me is a risen Jesus. Glorifies. The Spirit of the Lord lives inside of me, and He's on a mission. Is that the one that lives inside of you? Amen. Or the one you let sit in front of a computer and look at porn? Or one you take down to the crack house? There's Christians doing that. Which one of you got in you? Anyway, Proverbs 25:2. That's a very interesting thing about God. If you look at it a little closer, it says it's the glory of God to conceal a thing. That means it's the glory of God to hide a thing.
Come on.
The glory of God to hide a thing. But then it says, and that word honor is the same word as glory before it. Same word, just different English. So you could say it is the glory of God to hide a thing, but it is the glory of kings to search it out. If you look at that a little closer, you actually learn something about the Father. For some reason, I don't know if he calls that a game, but he takes pleasure in hiding things. That's weird. If I met somebody that did that, I would think they're a little weird. But I'm going to allow God to be who he is. And if he says he likes to hide things, then it's our honor, it's man's honor, it's king's honor to go search those things out. But then it becomes his pleasure to give you the very thing you were seeking. So he wants to give you the thing that he hid. Man, what a heavenly game that I'm not very familiar with. But whatever this says is true. So I let God be a hider and we be a finder. And it's his pleasure. Imagine coming up saying, God, it's me, I need a car. Okay, well, I've hid the keys to your car just in this area. Oh, over there. You're over there looking, and guess what happens right now while you're looking? He's excited. What? That's crazy. He gets his kicks out of that. Like you pushing in to the things that he's hidden. And then when you find them, boom. He gets pleasure. He gets pleasure. It's a weird thing to think about God. One of the things that you look in the Bible is there's things hidden in here. There's things called the Bible code, and there's all kinds of people been looking at this Bible trying to disprove it for so long, and you ain't come up with nothing yet. You might as well just stop. It's been 2,000 years and since Jesus left, and you can't do nothing to this word because it's unbreakable. But they found if you take the first 5 books of the Bible and you count every 50 letters and you circle it, you count every 50 letters and circle it. In the first book of Genesis, you find the word Torah. So through the whole book of Genesis, you count 50, circle the letter, count 50, circle the letter. Through the whole book, it doesn't miss one time, it's the word Torah. All the way through Genesis. And then the second book has Torah. But the middle book don't have that. You go every 50 letters, it doesn't do that. But you go to the 4th book, and it's doing it, but it's spelling Torah backwards. You do it on the last book, there's 5 books of the Torah, that's the first 5 books that Moses wrote. You got, I guess I'll go from your side, Torah, nothing, Torah backwards. So it's pointing at something. So when you get to this middle book right here, if you go every 7 letters and circle it, it says Yahweh. Okay, but he hid that in there. Why? Because that's what he likes to do. You know, you can take the JFK assassination and you can find just like maybe one chapter in like one of the prophets where it has a bunch of words connected with that. God hid that in there. Why? That's what he likes to do. So what would he like you to do? Do you search out things that God's hidden in your life? Or did you even know he did that sort of thing? You just walk around like God's on automatic. I don't know why I got this cancer. I'll just sit here and wait for God to heal me. And you're dead. Anyway, watch this. So, and all these things that are hidden, I'd like to just point out this. Look at Genesis 5. This is pretty interesting. I'm going to read maybe. So you know Adam in the Bible in Genesis. He was the great granddaddy of Noah. But there were other children. Adam had other children who had children who had children, but there was just one bloodline that just goes all the way down from Adam to his son, to that son's son, to that son, all the way to Noah. I want you to see what God hid in this. Genesis 5. It's been out for a few years. I think the brother that taught me this has already went home to be with the Lord from Mr. Genesis 5. Look at this thing that's hidden right here. This is the book of the generations of who? Adam. In the day that God created man in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam. In the day when they were created. I don't know if I got time for that. But, where was Eve created? inside of Adam. How Eve was taken out of Adam. Yes? You know the word woman means man with a womb. It's almost believed that Adam was created asexual, where he didn't need anything to recreate. There's animals out there that are asexual and they don't need a mate. They can just make their own babies. God comes along and he takes something out of Adam, which our Bible calls it a rib, but if you look closer at the Hebrew, it means a side chamber. He took out the side chamber of Adam and he makes a whole other person out of that, and it's really believed that he took the womb out of Adam and made a person out of it, and that's what womb man, woman, man with womb. That's why it says male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam. See, God didn't have to blow into Eve because he already blew it into Adam. I got to get out of here because this thing went on. Look at this, verse 3. And Adam lived 130 years, and then he had a son in his own likeness and after his image, and called his name Seth. Is that his first son? No, it's his third son. So they're not actually going all of his children. There's particular children. Seth, Adam has Seth. And then you keep going down, and then Seth, he began to have children. And says, verse 6, and Seth lived 105 years and begot Enoch. So what's going to happen here is it's going to take you all the way to Noah. I'm going to show you this. Did you make that slide? Can I have it? Let's put up Adam and Seth and Enoch, and let's make this list all the way to Noah. Look what God hid right before he wiped the earth clean of sin. God looked at the earth and saw that all they did, just 24/7, had thoughts of violence and sin. And God was about to wipe out everything. And did you know that hidden in the genealogy of these names, God already in his predetermined counsel, before the earth was ever made, even naming Adam, Adam. Isn't that what it says? And he called their name Adam. Naming Adam, Adam means he already started this genealogy the very day he named Adam. Meaning he already knew what was going to happen. Watch this. It says Adam, his name means what? Man. Seth's name means appointed. Enoch means mortal. Kenan means sorrow. Mahalil means the blessed God. Yared means shall come down. Enoch means teaching. Methuselah, which was Noah's Noah's grandfather, his name means his death shall bring. So whoever named him knew that when Methuselah died, the flood was going to come. When Methuselah died, the flood came. Do you know he's the oldest living man in the Bible? Figure that out. Is that grace? It's grace. Lamech, the despairer. And then Noah, his name means comfort and rest. So if you put all that together, it's the gospel. Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. That really causes more questions than anything. To me, that means we started like we were going to fail. And God made Adam and then even started the gospel with him. His name. All the way down to Noah. Today I'd like to dig into this question. What did God's death bring? What did the death of God bring? If you wanted to know that, who would have to teach you that? The blessed God has to come down and teach us what his death will bring the despair, which is comfort and rest. Well, I know, let's go to Harvard. Let's go to Mars Hill and ask the educated folk of the day. What did God's death bring? And when Paul went up there, Mars Hill, All the smart guys of the day, they laughed him to scorn. Come on, most of them. There were a few that were interested, but today let's figure out what did the death of God bring, because this whole book right here is the teaching that God has taught us about what his death has brought. What did God's death bring? Let me explain this, then we'll get to some more baptism. I guess once you fire up this furnace, boy, you just killing folks. You see, the baptismal pool right there under the cross, it's where he died. That's where you're going to die. And then he's going to raise from the dead. You're going to come out of that water raised from the dead. Let's hear this word first. Can you imagine if all we had about God coming down, teaching what his death shall bring, if he just passed it on through the telephone game? Anybody play the telephone game? You can start with something, and before you get to the end, it's like purple spaghetti monster. You're like, I did not say that. I said AA batteries. Right? You imagine Jesus, right? He comes down, the blessed God comes down, he starts teaching us what his death shall bring. And then goes, okay, fellas, you pass that on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And that's the telephone game. And glad we didn't get stuck with it. Where all these weird old doctrines come from, these people drinking Kool-Aid and thinking that God gives them right to marry children and rape them and do, you see what I'm saying? That came down through the broken telephone game. God came down talking about what his death brought, and now we have denominations and people using the Bible to say that his death brought us Mormonism or, just some weird whatever. So that's why you need this. That's why I thank God that we have this right here, that other countries try to stomp this out, and we are one of the few nations that have free right to this anytime we want. In China, they will fight over one page of this Bible, and yet we treat it like nothing. Thank God we have the Word. So we were born, this is what's interesting about our life, is that before the earth or any of us were ever considered to be created, there was a fight going on. And I don't even know if I want to call it a fight, but the devil was having his rebellion against God. And in the midst of this fighting, we were born. It's kind of an interesting thing, like we might, that's not baby boomers, I don't guess, but whenever a war is going on and you're having babies, I guess that don't work. Well, God started having babies. He made Adam right in the middle of a conflict with evil. Which is weird, because our story is the one that God was going to use as a means to end evil. It's brilliant. So you're in the middle of conflict. God begins to create man and then the earth and all this stuff. And then you find out that it's because in our birth certificate is the devil's obituary. And you're like, okay, I can follow this. So right now I'm in the middle. Oh, no. God would use our story, would use man as the vessel. You're a clay pot. You are made out of dirt. You are a clay pot. Our vessel would be used by God to carry out his plan, this teaching. Amen. Think about this. So God, before the earth was created, there's evil, and God has to have a solution. So they get together and they have a meeting. Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it. We're doing it. Yep, okay. This is our move right here. We're going to make this move. What is that? When the enemy came and he began to come into our creation, because in the middle of the conflict, he comes down and he starts trying to get into our stuff. And we became willing hostages of him because we just handed ourselves over to him. So God went ahead and makes his move on evil, and it's a one checkmate move. Maybe you don't understand who you're playing with. Maybe you think God wants to piddle pat with you. Light and darkness, light and darkness, light and darkness, light and darkness. I don't think God's into that. I think God is like a one done and bam. And I can prove that to you because this is the move that he decided to do against evil. So God, when he makes us, he tells us, listen, you're in the middle of a conflict. Don't get caught in the crossfire. I'm going to make you a way out and you take it. And your prize is going to be that I'm going to glorify you. I'm going to give you my life. I'm going to take your little humanity and I'm going to glorify it with my divine life. I'm going to stick it in there and I'm going to glorify you and you're going to rule and reign with me, says God.
That's right.
Oh. Okay, so there was a devil who wanted to rule as you, but you are going to glorify us and let us rule with you. Huh. Well, that's interesting. The devil must be really mad about that.
Yeah.
So our very prize is the thing that got him in trouble. So here's kind of what I want to get at today. Even though I believe the gospel 100% when I started this, it makes no sense. Here's what I mean by that, because I'm trying to be the best. I do want to be the best. I want to be the best. I want to perfectly understand this Bible. Especially when I see that none of y'all, now listen, I'm not looking at any of y'all, so I'm not talking directly to you, but I am talking to you. Because none of y'all have the Bible skills that I'm looking for. I want, however Jesus had a handle on the Torah, that's what I go after that. I want to be the best in the Bible. And then so I just learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. You start looking at what you're learning, and you're learning about God's death. And I don't care how long you try to get good at that, you ain't never going to get good at the death of God. It makes no sense. It's so wacko. God's death. Okay, I want to be perfect explaining God's death. But it makes no sense. So how can you be perfect? Anyway, so as I studied this, trying to be perfect, and looking at what I was studying about God dying for you, trying to be perfect at explaining God blood. Right? Think about it. I'm trying to be the best. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Okay, all the preachers are talking about God's death and God's blood. All right, I'm going to be good at that one. You know what? It don't make no sense. His blood, his death, God. If God is God, he can't die. Okay, fine. I just let it be what it is. See, God's death as subject material is bizarre. Can we just put this out here? Our faith was told to be put in something that on the surface is bizarre and confusing. Because you have God who cannot die, dying. And he chooses that as his narrative. And he's going to come down and teach it. You know why? Because can't nobody teach that. Remember when he said the plan around the earth, the pre-earth plan? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to get this book right here. We're going to go down and we're going to explain it to them. Because they ain't going to get this. But we act like we did, because there's all this religion around here. So anyway, here's this bizarre material that doesn't make a lot of sense about God dying. He's choosing this narrative, and to try to perfectly understand that is a no-win situation. So then I begin to realize it's camouflage. Come on in, Miss Maya. Robert. We're talking about how bizarre the gospel is, Brother Robert. Think about this. God's death. Brother Robert, listen. God's death. This is a bizarre material that we have in the Bible. if I'm trying to be perfect at the Bible, I want to be the best. And my material is bizarre. It's God's death. But it says right here, hidden in the genealogy, that he's going to come down and teach us what his death shall bring. That's where you caught up with us. So I'm trying to perfectly understand this gospel, and that God's come down and teach me this, and so I begin to realize that it's a cover. It's camouflage. Remember how God hides the thing? He hides stuff. Think about what he hides. Remember what we were learning? You missed one scripture about God likes to hide things. And we thought that was interesting about God, about how he likes to hide things. And then he wants us to find them. Then he gets pleasure out of us finding them. It's just a weird thing about God. You've got to let that be what it is. He likes to hide things. Let me give you an example. I'm standing up here right now. Some of you know me. Some of you don't know me. I'm pretty foolish. I've been in prison. I've done things I ain't even tell y'all about. I got 9 felonies on my record. I'm not that, you know. I'm foolish. So God right now is saving people's destiny from hell as his word is being preached in this foolish setting where a foolish person is just standing up here in a foolish dress and yelling at you at the top of his lungs and getting loud, and God hid in all this foolishness salvation.
Come on.
He not likes to hide things, but he's so beautiful. And then it's his pleasure to give it to you. So you don't have to beg for it. I began to realize that in this bizarre material that I'm supposed to be perfect at, I want to be better than all my people, it's too bizarre. So then I began to realize you can't be perfect at the wrapper, at the cover. And we got to look down a little deeper and see, what did the death of God bring? Because again, listen, watch this. So this camouflage, this hiding of the true goodies, the telephone game didn't save it. Last thing, to my telephone game. Thank God Jesus did come down, teach us what his death shall bring, and pass it down through people through the telephone game. He saved it right here and preserved it for us. This protects his teaching that he brought us about his death. Because man has twisted it over the years. So sin, you know how we all grew up hearing about sin? Anybody ever, raise your hand if you've never heard sin. I'm talking about we all grew up hearing sin, always heard how permanent staining and stench and its power and the ugliness of sin and how rotten sin is and how rotten you are because of sin, and good God, son, cut your hair. Lady, take the makeup off of you. Put the dress down over your ankle. My God. Dirty, rotten scoundrel. You stench up the nostrils of Almighty God. Get down here right now on your face and beg God to save you while he holds his nose. You never heard of that? I'm running down to the altar as fast as I can. I'm getting carpet burns sliding down. I'll be the first one. So we've heard about the pandemic of sin our whole life. This sin virus is the true killer. So what we hear about it is, therefore God had to rid this horrible virus that plagued us and the angels and heaven, everything. He had to defeat the devil and sin and put back in order everything that was affected or infected. Therefore God had to hold his nose to send his son Jesus to die for you so you can be saved. So you better accept him. Now you can be a soul winner. The way I've heard the gospel was God really had to muster everything that he had to defeat his foe. That's kind of the way I heard it. He had to like get everything to take care of the devil. To me, that was interesting because I'm not sure that that's the kind of teaching that we were passed down from God as the comfort. Let me explain that. I'll be done after that. I just want to explain to you what did God's death bring? That's the sermon. What did God's death bring? His death teaching is supposed to comfort us. And the comfort that we have received, or the teaching that we have received over the years to comfort us, has written that red hymnal. Burdens, 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 that's my life every day until I die. Burdens, burdens, heavy loads and burdens, mountain climbing, oh, river crossing, valleys wide, oh. Maybe. What if that is the comfort? Or what if it's not? Some of the comfort now that we have today doesn't look like the comfort that I believe that we're supposed to get from God's death. I think we've seen slave songs. To me, the red hymnal, sometimes now, there's some of my favorite songs in the red hymnal. Don't misunderstand me. The old rugged cross. Give me on that. Watch this though. It's like, now we all have the idea of the African slaves, right? Singing on the slave ship. You know, oh, one day we're going to be free. Yeah. Oh, one day, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the songs in the church. Yeah. One day, in the by and by, in the pie in the sky, when I die, hallelujah, by and by. Oh, okay, so he came down and God said his death is going to comfort us one day. But until then, you just take it like a man. And then when you get to heaven, we'll see who took it the most like a man. But that's what we got. Some of these slave songs that we're singing needs to be. You know, another thing that was passed down to us was a form of religion without power. So if God came down from heaven teaching us that his death shall bring us comfort and rest, and we end up with a church that looks like we're singing slave songs about the by and by and the pie in the sky, and we have religion with no power, and everything is in the future, and we suffer now. Is that right or is that wrong? That's what we're about to find out. Which comfort is it? So I'm going to use the Bible to show you which comfort I believe that it is. So the songs that we sing about death and what it brings, here's where it ends us up. So when Jesus has come down from heaven teaching that his death shall bring us comfort and rest, here's where we've ended up with his teaching. Check this out. We are powerless, sinner, unworthy, pathetic losers. We need to beg God every day to have mercy on us. That's the staunchest. Now you know I'm going all the way to the top, and I'm getting the worst case scenario. And everybody's in the middle. Powerless, sinner, unworthy, wet noodles, living in bunkers. That's where the church has gotten from the message that God brought down to us, is that you better hide in your bunker and fight over toilet paper just like everybody else. Because, well, when you get to heaven, you ain't going to have to worry about that toilet paper. I got plenty up here. But until then, y'all just suffer with the cancer and you die by and by. Wait till you get to the pie in the sky. It'll all be over. Until then, God's death has brought you a future comfort and a rest. Just hang on. I don't know how we got this much religion into the church when God came down from heaven to teach us the comfort that his death did bring us. So I started staring at this, and I wanted to break it down today and look into it a little closer. What if God's death is actually a lesson that he's trying to teach us? And we learn about sin. How rotten you are. Rotten you are. Y'all are rotten. We're all rotten. God, hurry up before we all rot. But what if God is trying to teach us something through his death? But what if that's the lesson that he's teaching, and then through that is what that brings? What does that bring? Comfort and rest. Supposed to. So, getting some of these scriptures. Look at this. Here's what it's teaching. Put up John 3:16. Everybody knows this. What if we learned about what the death of God brought us rather than what sin brought us? What would be the difference? What would preaching sin do? God wants to teach his death to the church and what it brought. We want to teach sin. But God wants to teach this. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Yeah, we all got that. But look at the next verse. For God sent his Son into the world what? Whoa now. Hold up a minute. You mean all the sermons I heard my whole life condemning me and condemning me and condemning me and making me run to the altar? Jesus didn't even come for that? You mean Jesus didn't even come down into the world to condemn it, but he came to actually bring me something? Yeah, but if I just stand up here and I gotta make sure that the people in the church, they're not hollering off in the ditches, and so I gotta preach sin, and I gotta tell them what sin will bring them. And you know what comes when you preach sin? Condemnation. But Jesus didn't come into the world, did he? Well, that's okay, Jesus. We'll do it ourselves. We'll condemn each other. Look at Romans 8:1. There is therefore now, well, a little bit. Well, then I know some of you still wrestling out saying there's a little combination still left for you, but all you other perfect ones out there, none. 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 I want you to see already. Jesus came down teaching what his death shall bring. In the church, somehow, we turn that teaching into what sin shall bring, and then we just bring all this condemnation in, and then the church looks like what it looks like is because we're all sitting here condemned. Well, I'm not worthy to lay hands on somebody. I'm not worthy to have God answer my prayer. I'm not worthy to be blessed past my own thinking. God said, I'll bless you above your own thinking. What if you believe it? Well, no, I'm just condemned. Last week I was over there doing something I shouldn't have done. Well, where'd you get that gospel? Because that's making you a wet noodle in the bunker. How are you going to get condemned people to fight the devil? How are you going to get condemned people to do what Jesus did? You teach what his death actually brought.
Come on.
Here's the definition I wrote down for comfort. If God comes down teaching his death shall bring comfort, here's comfort. It's a state, like a constant state of physical ease and freedom. You have that? You have a constant state of physical ease and freedom. An alleviation of a person's feelings of guilt or distress or despair. Oh, man. You put that thing back in there. It says he'll come down teaching that his death shall bring who? The despairing. Those people need to be comforted. No, they don't. They need to be condemned. They're dirty, rotten sinners wearing all that makeup. That's what Jesus came down to fix. Do you live in a constant state of physical ease and freedom from pain or restraint? Do you have alleviations from feelings of guilt, distress, and despair? If not, you're not hearing the teaching of what his death brought you. Oh, but you're hearing teaching. Go to Luke. Oh, I didn't give you this. Give me Luke 16. I was trying to, I feel like God gave me this. I was looking for an example of like comfort. What does that look like? If God's going to come down and teach us his death brings us comfort, what does that look like? And then God reminded me of the beggar Lazarus at the rich man's house or gate. And they both went to hell. Well, on the same day? I'm not sure, but whenever you get that, I'd like to have Luke. I'd like you to hear. Do you know that both of them went down into the earth? Does anybody want to take that up with NASA? Hell is in the earth. Get over it. There's two chambers, right, in the earth. One of them was not a burning side or a tormenting side, but the other side was a side that Abraham was, and he was over there waiting actually for the crucifixion of Jesus, who was going to go down there and take all of them up to heaven. So you got these two places. But before they were here, they were on the earth. And one rich man had everything he ever needed. He had no problem. He had no pain. He had no physical ease from freedom. He got everything he needed. But then he goes to hell. And the rich man, begging outside of his house, goes over to the other side where Abraham is, and he's being comforted. Now we're talking about what does it mean to be comforted. Because hidden in that genealogy is that man is appointed all this sorrow, but the blessed God will come down teaching that his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. Whoa! Well, I'm excited. What is this comfort? What does that even look like? Why? Sign me up. Oh, it looks like when Lazarus was taken out of his life that was so burdened and so broken and so despairing. And all of a sudden, he gets put in a place and worry about nothing anymore. Totally comforted. Is that what it says? And he said unto his, it was verse 24. I'm jumping in the middle of this story. I want you to hear what was being said. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, this is the guy, the rich guy, who's in trouble and he's burned, he's suffering, he's being tormented. He said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that was the little beggar he had sitting outside of his house, send him over here, because he still sees him like a do-boy, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. Now, but now, you understand that when God comes down from heaven to teach us what his death has brought us, it's comfort now from all this. Well, by and by, pie in the sky, when I get to heaven, then, no. This is what comfort looks like. But now he is comforted. All of the ease of his problems and all the things, his pain and all the restraints that was on his life, all the feelings of despair, everything gone. You're supposed to have that right now. Like you're supposed to walk around and look like you're jacked up on some kind of drug that they don't know. They're like, I think he's on opium. You need to get jacked up on opium. Here's what the word rest means. To cease work or movement in order to relax, refresh, or recover strength. God is going to come down from heaven teaching us this bizarre material. God's death. That's bizarre. It's bizarre. So we know our gospel is kind of, that's crazy. Until God comes and explains it. And he says, this is my checkmate, one move against evil, and it's going to bring everything, comfort and rest, starting with you. And you're going to have comfort and rest. And so when I begin to learn that the death of God, that very weird thing, all of a sudden, that's just the wrapper on the outside, the camouflage, the hidden wisdom inside, that God, oh my goodness, wants to comfort me and rest me from all that. You know, when you're born, they put you on assignment for the American dream. I got to scratch it all out, pay my kids' bills and 401ks and blah, blah, blah. It's all a lie. God says if you look in the Bible, life is automatic. We're out there just working and scratching for paychecks and trying to get recognition and men's applause, silver and gold and houses and land. And God said, why don't you let me give you comfort and rest from all that? You can just totally just walk away from all that mess and come over here. And let me show you what my death has brought you. It's brought you a release from all that care, worries, burden, believing in all that. And my death shall bring you. See, that's why it's important that you learn that when Jesus comes down to teach us what his death shall bring, you don't let religion teach you. You don't let somebody teach you. You don't even let your grandmama teach you.
Come on.
I'm telling you, that telephone game don't work. It's this word of God right here.
Amen.
That's preserved. It's on the telephone game. Well, my granddaddy told me that God only helps those that help themselves. And then you tell your children, well, God only helps those that help themselves. And they tell them, well, God only helps them. And it's like, what? No. That's not what God's death brought. All right, so here, let's move on down. So if we're talking about hidden in the genealogy, bizarre material, God's going to come down and teach us what his death shall bring. You know what we teach in the church? We teach what sin will bring, and what sin brings is condemnation. But if we start teaching what God's death brings, it'll bring comfort. Yes?
Yeah.
Is that where we've gotten so far?
Yeah.
So, when Jesus came down teaching, well, first I wanted to point out the fact that look how this works. So God cannot die, yes? If he's God, can he die? But the gospel is God's death. So that makes no sense. And then, death's legal right is sin. But God has no sin. He legally can't die. God legally is bulletproof. So he concocts this plan where I'm going to make these dirt vessels and I'm going to use their birth certificate. I'm going to use their story to make my one move checkmate against evil. I'm going to come down and I'm going to give my life. God's saying, I'm going to give my life to fix this problem. And then I'm going to explain it to everyone so that they get it. Because if not, can you imagine having all this money and you just living in the back of Walmart in a tent? And somebody comes up to you and says, brother, why are you sitting back here in all this mess? Don't you know that God has rescued you? You got $1 billion in a mansion waiting on you. You want to go?
Come
Nah, just leave me here. I'm an old sinner, wretched sinner saved by grace. Yeah, you were, and then you get up and do something about God who lives in your body now. Anyway, okay, I'm going to hurry up and get through because people starting to look hungry. So, I just want you to see this genius move of God. Okay, so we learned in the beginning of the sermon that God likes to hide things. So he's hiding this beautiful teaching, this comfort that he's going to fix everything hidden in the message of his death, but he can't die, and so he has to trick evil into killing itself. Really, when the dust cleared, the devil thought he was killing Jesus, but actually he shot himself in the face. And God was like, wham, man, got you. So, in this weird, bizarre material, this God move, God used evil to defeat itself. Jesus came down teaching his death in the four Gospels. You know, he said, I'm the seed of the woman. And so the seed of the woman is going to come down, and I'm the seed of the woman because the seed is born to die. Can't get no fruit out of the seed unless it dies, Jesus said. Goes into the ground and dies. Then bring forth much fruit. But I just want you to know, even in Jesus' earthly ministry, if you're one of those four gospel Christians, you're like, well, it's red. I'm never leaving the words red. Well, all Paul's gospel is in red, just in case you want to know. But here's my point. If Jesus came down teaching that his death shall bring the comfort, the spirit and rest and comfort, then where were the disciples on the day of resurrection? I thought they would like hire some little, snow cone machine and one of those, what's that candy you make on cotton candy, like maybe have an elephant ride over here for the kids or something, just standing outside, just the third day, boy, I'm putting on with bam, here comes Jesus, y'all in there, just waiting outside, because they didn't get it. So when Jesus comes down in the four Gospels and he takes on the seed and he takes on the flesh and he's teaching them what his death is going to bring, he even told them, he said, I've got to be delivered into the hands of the Gentiles and they're going to beat me in front and kill me. He said, and this was hid from them. No wonder they weren't out there. So I would even say, if you were a four gospel Christian, you're not even going to find the comfort and rest that his death brought you because he didn't actually teach it there. Do you know that Jesus went back to heaven? And he stayed there for at least 7 years before he came down again. The blessed God came down from heaven and he taught the final lesson on what his death brought us. He said, Paul, I'm giving you the last download or update. If all you lived in the four Gospels, you have his death there. But look what that teaching made them. They were cowards, sitting there hiding from the Jews. They weren't doing what Jesus was doing. As soon as he died, they weren't out there like, boom, give me a blind man, come over here. Hey, Mr. Leprosy man, get over here. What you need, some money? Bam, silver and gold, have we none? Bam, bam, bam. We out here just doing what Jesus did. We so bomb. That's the four gospel teaching of his death, so it can't be finished there. See, there's got to be more. There's got to be more, because that's not the comfort. It's not till he comes back down from heaven and he begins to explain to the Apostle Paul exactly what the finished work does. Oh, wait a minute. Finished work brought me the Holy Ghost. He's the comforter. That means I literally have a living comforter walking around with me, because I'm going to get myself in something. I know y'all don't do that. Stuff where somebody walk around and the Holy Ghost right there. Bring me comfort. Brian, don't get in all that. Just rest from that problem. Let me take care of it. I'll comfort you. Don't worry about that. What? You need healing? I've already put that in the stripes of Jesus. But you need a car? All right, hit those keys over there. All right. Oh, you can see the end. You know that, people. Stay awake. When you almost made it, y'all about to make it. And then we're gonna throw some of y'all in the water. Kill you. All right, let me get down here and unpack this death of God so we can finish. And I can stop boring some of you. I just want you to hear, first of all, let's acknowledge that the material that's in the Bible about God's death is just bizarre. And me trying to be perfect at that was just pointless, because that's what's hiding the very fact that in that is the truth that we have been comforted and given rest through his death. And we have to hear that. We have to be taught that teaching that brings us comfort and rest in our life every single day. Or you need to get out of that church as fast as you can. Don't come here. Go where you grow. I don't care where you go. Write that down. Make a t-shirt. All right. Anyway. Okay. So if that was all that there was, Jesus had to come back down, and he gave the final download to Paul. And in the Gospels of Paul is the final download from the God, the blessed God who came down from heaven, teaching us about his death, about the comfort and the rest that comes. And so we have to put all the Bible together. You have to put the 4 Gospels with Paul to make all the sense, and the Old Testament and everything, and put it all together. And then we can understand the comfort and the rest. So let me give you some proof why I think this, and we'll be done. So when Jesus comes down, he's teaching us that this comfort and rest, one of my favorite things is he's talking to the despairing. Everyone in this room has a measure of despair right now about your life. What if it's God who's trying to teach you, the despairing, about his comfort and rest through his death, so that we never, ever, ever, ever despair about anything? Is that possible? Do you hear how high God's thoughts are above ours? Well, this is how religion. I'll just tip your bowl, I'll sing out of your little red book, and I'll go home, and I'll feel like I've been to church. So here's the difference. When God came as a seed, he was processed through the, like a seed is processed so that he can bring forth much fruit unto God, and that fruit was our comfort and our rest. Look at Romans 8:32. Do you know that God, in death, that one checkmate move to solve every problem everywhere for all eternity? This one move is God pouring himself out as the answer. I'm talking about if you took, let me see if I can put this and explain it the same way I got. Now listen, I'm at the end of my sermon, so don't turn your ears off yet, because this is where it all comes together. So God, to solve the problem of evil, would do this. He would just take himself, figure out a way that he could break open his vessel and pour himself out on everything and fix everything. That was the way he decided to fix it all with this life virus is what I'll call it. It's the same process when a sinner comes down here and God comes in and he puts himself down in that sinner, and it's supposed to begin to overtake everything about it. All their whole vessel, it just begins to overtake the way they think, the way they talk, the way they act, the way they think about money. Everything's beginning to change into his holiness. Everything that's uncommon with God about you becomes common with God, because he just pours himself into you as salvation, and it begins to overtake you. When God poured himself out on the cross, it is in a process right now of invading this whole earth with life, and it's going to fix every problem that's ever been broken. It's going to eventually saturate every single thing that's ever been broken. God is pouring through this creation with all the life of himself that he poured out, and he pours it out into you, and he pours it out into the world, and then one day it's all going to be consumed with this one checkmate move, and it'll be God's death.
Yeah.
I say all that to conclude with this. What if, this is my conclusion, what if what his death brought us, we actually treasured? It might not make sense to you, because we have this earthen vessel, and God, we have this treasure in our earthen vessel. What is that treasure? if you don't know, God came down from heaven and he taught us that his death would bring us this treasure. What if we begin to let that teaching get in us and we begin to treasure the treasure that's inside of us?
Come on.
What if we learn what the cross, his death, what if we learn what his death actually did, which was, he who spared not his own son but delivered him up for shall not with us give us all things for $10. That what I said? Freely give us 10 things. So if I'm going to start allowing the teaching of what God's death shall bring me, it's going to start encouraging me and start changing my mind, and it's going to start moving me to go, you know what? God's death not only brought me salvation and forgiveness of sin and being glorified and ruling and reigning with him in the future, but also it's just giving me all things. Oh. That's what you got to hear about the teaching of God's death, that it brought you, gives you all things. Yet we got Christians out there thinking that they are supplying themselves with life. You think your job supplies you. You think your wife supplies you with happiness. You think people around you in your relationship are supposed to keep you undepressed. It's the cross of Jesus Christ that if you teach it correctly, you see. What we've done is we've taught the death of Christ and condemned ourselves. But Jesus teaches it in a way that it comforts us and causes us to become like him. And that's how I'm going to end it. Explaining that to you. So Jesus didn't come down saying, all right, I'm here to shut down every strip club. All right, shut them down. Everybody bring your little joints and throw them up here. Come on, everybody's under arrest. Every one of y'all are under arrest. That's what I'm here to do. That's what God come down from heaven to do. Arrest us all. He could have shut down everything. He could have took us all to jail. But he said, I'm in here instead to bring you something. And I'm going to give it to you through my death. So here's how I want you to treasure it as you go home today. There's a difference between condemnation and comfort. A huge difference. In the hand-me-down teaching that we got from religion, it's condemnation. But actually, God is here to comfort you even today with the problems that you have as we treasure this gift. Baby, you go ahead. Jesus said, I'm not here to condemn you. I'm not here to condemn you. I really want you to get some comfort and rest in your life to where it looks like you're on some drug that nobody even understands what it is, because you cannot be moved. They say, don't you understand? This world is despairing. Why are you not despaired with all of us? And you just say, brother, sister, have you not heard what God's death brought us? Comfort and rest from all that mess out there. So I get to have a source of joy that no man can take. Nobody. I get to have the Holy Ghost and power. I get to have the spirit of love and a sound mind. I get to be free from all worry and care. So you mean, if I don't have to go out there and do any of that mess, well, what does that leave for me to do? Oh, I get to be about my Father's business. So we've already got the grave fired up. We're going to move some people into the grave and kill them. Yeah. Murder was the case. But we need to kill you. If you're being baptized today, you got to die. Because there's no rehab. God's just going to take you right out of the darkness into his light. I I know we're baptizing some kids today and I don't want to mess them up, but I'm going to hold you under that water until you stop breathing. There's no more bubbles. There's no more bubbles. You stop shaking, and I know you're just good and dead. And as soon as I know you're good and dead, I'll raise you up out of that grave to newness of life, and you're going to walk out of there somebody the world ain't never seen before. Because that old person is going to stay in that grave right there. That water right there represents the grave. Jesus died, watch this, for you. What does his death bring? His death brings so much comfort and rest. And one of those things are, he died for you, so you get to get in this water and take his death as yours. And then you get to be buried like he was. And you get to be raised up to newness of life as he was. You could never do that. So, Brother Kenny, go get your bathing suit on. So the conclusion is, oh, I didn't say nothing. That's my fifth conclusion. Let me read these last. I'm not kidding. Read these last two scriptures. So I can prove that the teaching of his death is going to use these scriptures. I'm done. I want to prove that the teaching of his death to bring us comfort was not to be wet noodles in the bunker. But the teaching of his death and comforting us was to cause us to become like him, to become ruling and reigning like him, to have authority like him, to have power like him, to have the same mind as him, to have the same walk as him, to be able to walk on water and break bread and not fear cancer or any of this mess. This is what the comfort of God was designed to do to the church. Let me just read this. Titus. Remember when God was meeting, predetermined the earth and how he was going to do the story? He predetermined that his move would be death. At the same meeting, the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lust, there it is, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. That's what it teaches. Looking for the blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify unto himself a peculiar people. There it is. If you preach sin to the church and you condemn everybody and we're all just walking around here condemned sinners and I'm just so unworthy, I'm so unworthy. Yeah, and you don't do nothing for God either, do you? You don't have this faith, this high belief that God just wants to walk around and just dominate evil. Everywhere you go, your children being in trouble, having bad dreams, you just immediately come and lay hands on their head and begin to pray all that out of them. You got a fever, you pray and break that fever off of with the power that Jesus gave you. That's the comfort that you're teaching and you're learning about the death of God. It causes me to... Just have to take life on like this. It's the comfort. When I start hearing about the death of God, come on like this. I'm just spared in the world. I start going like this. What? I ain't no victim? Oh, I ain't no victim? You mean I ain't got to bow down to whatever I find in the mailbox? Come on. I ain't got to bow down to whatever new law y'all got. Race that out with the teaching that God brought us about his death is supposed to take the despairing and not make them more despairing. Okay. I'm not going to reason I don't have any bread. I could walk on this water if I want to. Oh, my broken family is coming back together. It's coming back together. You think I'm going to leave the power of the world to put it back together? Please. I am so brainwashed by the death of God, what it brings. What it brings. What the death of God brings, it makes me comfortable. Well, I can walk around, I ain't got no problem. Walk around, any little thing that's broken, I'm going to do just like God would do. I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to make it right. Because Jesus said, as the Father sent me, so send I you. Uh-oh. To condemn everybody. What he did? He came to show you exactly what the death of God brings this place.
Amen.
Are you hearing what the death of God has brought you? Because if so, you are so comforted out there. You're just sitting there just like, yeah, you're preaching to the choir, dummy. Well, good. I hope I'm preaching to the choir today. I hope y'all don't have any problems in your life. And I don't care if all your life is burning down around you. You're just like, yeah, man, I'm comforted. I'm resting from all this. I'm going to stand right here and see the goodness of God in this situation. I'm going to watch my kids go through that system and come home. I'm going to watch God give me favor where there is no favor with man. I'm going to watch God restore my broken marriage. I'm going to watch God fix my children who are out there in the ditch. Bring them home. That's the kind of comfort that it did to me. Well, what? With God's death, boy, it started to come. I ain't no victim.
Come on.
This is what God did. Boy, you didn't want to watch that, right? Come on. My whole generation. Come on. We ain't going to live in no curses.
Come on.
We ain't going to die. Because I heard when his death brought me. And it wasn't making the despair more despair. Is that 15? Is that with some good works? This is my last scripture. Woo! My favorite part is don't let anybody despise you. How you do that? I need y'all to get me out of church. I want to know how to do that. Last verse. B. This is what this thing, look, I promise this last verse. While he's in the meeting, before the earth began, he planned your works. He planned on you being comforted so that you could walk around with that comfort like this. Like Jesus. Jesus was like, oh no. If I go back to this, it's going to kill me. That's what his disciples were doing. I read this and I'm done. I'm not going to go to 10. Just give me all the way to 10. Ephesians 2:10. That's what his death teaches you. It teaches the despairing comfort and rest so that they then respond with works that were created before you were even born. God was going to come free you up in your despaired mind with comfort and rest so that you could wake up and leave all that mess behind and start doing everything he has you to do in your life. He has works planned before you were even made in that same counsel of his death. So he's going to take his death. I'm going to come down and explain what it means to you. And then you're going to come alive and you're going to start being my child. And we're going to have everything in common now. Do you want that? Do you want the comfort of God in your life to do what it was designed to do? Because what it's designed to do is make you like Jesus. And in this world around here, Jesus thought it was a good idea that he goes back to heaven so he could send out an army of himself. And then all we did was condemn ourselves into wet noodles. What kind of worship music would Jesus sing? That's my final question. Watch it. Would Jesus sing a song about having to climb a mountain today? Well, I got to cross this river. The valley's so wide. I think I'll just go back and crack. What kind of music? What if he sang music like he was comforted? Like everything was going to be all right? Like he was at ease at all times? I just praise your name. In the middle of all this, I'm not worried, and I don't have any care. I've been comforted. I'm in full rest. I bet Jesus sang worship songs from a place of comfort and rest. Oh, what was us going around the mountain 40 times? No, we're supposed to be destroying the works of the devil like Jesus. That's what would happen if you got comforted. You'd stop taking all that stuff the devil's smashing on. Another thing. Alright, I gotta finish. I ain't taking no cancer until I die by in the sky. Comfort. I'm taking the comfort now that says my family don't have to repeat my curses. I'm taking the comfort now that says I don't have to keep sickness until it kills me. I will stand against all evil. I will destroy all works of the devil. Jesus went about healing all who were oppressed of the devil, which is your job now. Unless you're a condemned sinner. You're just trying to hang on till you make it. No, you let God comfort you. You let him so comfort your despairing mind. You will come out of this world. You will live like Jesus. And you will be so at peace while you get to work. Lord Jesus, you have come down from heaven to teach us that your death has brought us something to be treasured. And if we treasure that, whoo, can you imagine all that were written by the people who treasured what God's death brought them? Smith Wigglesworth, John G. Lake, all the revivalists throughout all history had treasured what God's death had brought them. And history books and record books are written all about them all throughout time. And then there's the church over here, there's condemned sinners. And all they got to show for it is nothing. No, we don't pray for people. We just sing a couple songs and tip God and we go home, and that's called church. And none of the men here have long hair. And all the women have perfect makeup. Down over their ankles. Oh, so that's destroying the works of the devil and healing all who are oppressed and making sure your family is not in curses and living the rest of your life in the blessing. Father, we're going to treasure what your death has brought us. It's more than eternal life. It's more than a golden ticket. It's right now comfort. It says that I can say to the mountain, get out of my way. If you don't move this mountain, then I need you to move. I don't know who taught you that, but that's not what God's death brought us. That's a stupid song. Jesus said, if you say to this mountain, quit talking to God about your God said, stop talking to me about that mountain. You talk to that mountain about me. Tell you something out. Tell you about God. This death has brought me power over you. You don't get in my way. You don't get my mountain. Get out of my way. That's what his comfort has done to my despairing mind when I thought, everybody hates me and nobody likes me. Sure, I can tell that mountain to move. I got too much paper on.